Super Mario Bros., the game that started it all. Mario's first adventure in a Mushroom Kingdom to save Princess Peach. If you look up the release date of the game, you will see that it was released on September 13th, 1985 in Japan, and October 18th, 1985 in North America. You'll see the American release date everywhere, even on the official Nintendo website. But what if I tell you that the American release date of Super Mario Bros. Isn't really correct? And there's a reason for that. So let me give you a history lesson about what happened to the video game industry. I'm not going to go too in detail with it, but I have links to videos and articles in the description of this video if you're interested. So back in the late 1970s to early 1980s, second generation video game consoles such as the Atari 2600, Magna Odyssey 2, and ColecoVision, among others, were extremely popular. But a series of terrible rushed, unlicensed games, as well as the growing popularity of computers rather than game consoles, had led to what was known as the video game crash of 1983. With poorly made games such as a port of Pac-Man and the infamous E.T. game, the video game industry crashed. Even the top video game companies at that time had lost all hope for the industry, and they had no reason to produce any more video games, as they lost over $500 million. This would play a major role of why it took so long for the Nintendo Entertainment System, along with Super Mario Bros., to end up on store shelves. And just because the game was released on October 18th, 1985, does not mean that it was accessible to market right away. The American video game crash resulted in a hopeless situation, and nobody wanted to take the risk of marketing any more video games due to the reputation that they had for both companies and consumers. On November 17th, 1985, Macy's stores in New York City advertised 15 titles for the NES, including Super Mario Bros. Nintendo's advertising team expected that Super Mario Bros. Would be available by Christmas of 1985, but there wasn't much evidence to prove that this was true. According to the Los Angeles Times, there was an ad from Target published on March 13th, 1986, which again included Super Mario Bros. Along with 14 other NES games. Copyright Office listings claim that the manual of Super Mario Bros. Was published on October 31st, 1985. But, quote, there are occasional discrepancies between when a title is regarded to have been released to retailers and when it is actually available to the public. Stephen Kent, author of the book The Ultimate History of Video Games, states, quote, when Nintendo went to New York, Super Mario Bros., which would become the linchpin during the national launch of the NES, had not been introduced, and that the cartridge was available by the time Nintendo of America went national, the end of 1986. But in the contrary, this represented the second limited test of the NES in Los Angeles, meaning that Super Mario Bros. May have been available even before the national launch in 1986. Kent also stated that, quote, according to Howard Lincoln, Minoru Akawaga, and Howard Phillips, the game was not available during the limited trial launch of the Nintendo Entertainment System in the winter of 1985. It was available the following year as the Nintendo took the product nationwide. Chris Kohler was the author of the book Power Up: How Japanese Video Games Gave the World an Extra Life. He states that gives the game a 1986 release, simply noting that the US version of the Famicom, renamed the Nintendo Entertainment System, launched in New York City for Christmas 1985 with games like Duck Hunt, Wild Gunman, and Donkey Kong, but not Super Mario Bros., which arrived in 1986. Gail Titan was a former Nintendo of America Vice President of Brand Management and the head of advertising and marketing during the early NES launch, stated that, quote, you are making me second guess myself as well. If I would have said yes, but my memory says that there were 15 games at launch, plus the 2 packets. Wikipedia has them listed and it seems to be correct, which would mean Mario followed very shortly thereafter. After all of that investigation, there were a few possibilities regarding the official American release date of Super Mario Bros. The game was released on October 18th, 1985, along with the other launch titles and the system in a limited number of New York City stores. The game was released on October 31st, 1985, the date of the manual's publication. The game was planned for a launch release, but not actually available until some unknown point between October 18th and mid to late November 1985 as seen in the Macy's ad. Or the game simply wasn't available until the LA launch in 1986. In conclusion, there is not enough evidence to state which possibility is the truth. It's most likely that it wouldn't be until the end of 1986 when the NES and Super Mario Bros. Were finally available to markets nationwide. It's really sad that we may never know when Super Mario Bros. Was really released or was available to the American public, especially because the game is so iconic and had revived the video game industry, selling more than 40 million copies, which was unprecedented at the time. So that's it for this video. If you have more information about the American release, feel free to share it in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give a like and subscribe for more Mario goodness. Alright guys, be back soon.